So this is the first time we've actually chatted face to face, so to speak, isn't it? I think we've actually known each other for probably about 10 years. When I was serving, when I was in the Marines, I had a friend, Frenchy, Rob French, and he's also a surfer. And he told me about you because he was telling me his stories about back in Vietnam. And I thought, no way, that's mental. And then he put me onto your book, and I read it back then. I thought, that's fantastic. Gotta follow this guy. And as we've moved forward, I've obviously seen some of your content and things you've done, and I think you're a pretty interesting guy to get on, and especially for the perspective of anyone that's watching this channel to sort of follow something from an American point of view, because most of the people we're going to have on are going to be British background. So to talk to an American about something so significant like Vietnam, for example, and obviously that everything that you're doing in life, before and after that, I thought it'd be a good place to start.
Yeah.
So just because I'm a little bit hazy myself, and it's been a while since I read the book, I've got a copy here, Surfer Saigon. It says actually you've got a second book coming out. Is that right?
Yeah, the second one. Yeah, there's a second and a third. The second one I finished, but it's way out there.
That's what we want, though.
Yeah, well, I went and started seeing a counselor, and she was into trans something, and she started getting me to meditate and everything. Well, that just opened up all these little, I don't know what you call them.
Memories.
Yeah, not memories. It started opening channels, and so yeah, it just took me down a different path of magic and stuff.
Yeah.
It just started opening up all this stuff, and it was like lucid dreaming. I can't think of the words. It's been so long.
Psychedelic.
Yeah, kind of like psychedelic stuff, but just intuition stuff, and how do you go when you're able to? People say they can travel in their dreams and things or something.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it just opened up this whole thing, and I went into this whole world of magic. And it was pretty gnarly because I started using it like, oh, these guys want to surf my river mouth and I can't touch them. Well, I just went home and just started sitting down meditating, and I could take them out. Pretty weird, but
all through meditation alone.
All through meditation, it just I started having visions and all kinds of stuff. I mean, gnarly shit that was going on. Friends of mine were growing pot, and I was able to transport myself to them, and one was getting ripped off when I did this astral projection. And I came back, called him up, and said, "You're getting ripped off." "No way. How would you know?" I said, "Well, I just astral projected to your place." And he's going, "Oh, fuck, whatever." Went out to his patch. There they were. Guys were out there ripping them off. And he just kind of went, "Oh," and I went, "Oh." Yeah, it goes into a whole world of magic. And, dealing with PTSD, like I said, the one counselor, she got me into meditation, but I didn't know it was going to take me into this weird, other dimension. So yeah, that book I finished it 1,000,000 years ago, but it'll never get published because it's
trying to perfect it as well. Well, I really would love to just start back when you joined service, because I'm under the impression you were drafted. Was that right? Did you join voluntary? You voluntary drafted. Yeah. How old were you when you joined? What did you
18.
join?
It was wintertime. I had no work. I had been glassing surfboards, and then back in '67, when winter hit in Santa Cruz, the day after Memorial Day, when we have our Memorial Day, the town would die. It was a tourist town. It went dead. If you wanted to go out and eat at night, good luck. You weren't, unless you ate fast food, but everything closed. So my brother got drafted. They start drafting for the Marines, and I didn't want to go into the Marines because one of my surf buddies, his father was a lifer. And I started hearing stories from him, and I just went, oh shit, I'm not going. So I went down and said, well, if I volunteer draft, can I go into the Army with my brother? And they said, yeah. So I volunteered, drafted, and we ended up going through basic training together. Then after that, we got split.
Did you serve in Vietnam together, or was that
Yeah,
after
we
you
were in Vietnam together for a bit. He went to Germany, I went to Vietnam, and then I guess he felt guilty being the older brother, so he came over there, and when he got there, he just goes, I'm out of here. So he put in for a transfer to get out of there. They had us, I had to leave the unit I was with. I got into it with a bunch of the guys, and I told them I was going to shoot them all. And we had all these new guys coming in, and they were just fucking idiots.
Right.
And so so they stuck me and him with the farthest southwest artillery unit. There was just, they had 6 guns, and they had ammo boxes covering it, and we're out in the middle of nowhere, and that was it. It's like, oh great, this is just one. Yeah. So yeah, what they had me do is I just start clearing roads. I'd take off at sunrise, and I'd just start driving all day. And my brother just freaked out. He couldn't handle it. To me, it was like, oh, we're not in the jungles. And because when I was with the Ranger unit, we lived in the jungles. We'd go out and we stayed there. And so there was no communication, no nothing. A lot of times we couldn't get food or anything because it was all ambush, counter ambush. And so if any time a copter came in, well, then the whole world knew where we were.
Exactly.
So we just had to live in the jungle, and it was supposed to be 30 days at a time, but a lot of times we never even got to come in. And so we were more efficient that way.
I mean, back then, I mean, the jungles, yeah, I'd say it's the toughest environment I worked in. Obviously, it's just so different, and your body's just decomposing from the second you get in there. And obviously, your kit and equipment too. And if you can forget about your electrical stuff, that's going too. But back then, it would have been so basic what you were given to take out, and it just, living is surviving, isn't it? And then you've obviously got the job to do at the same time,
Yeah.
Would you say it's quite a positive experience, Vietnam, or was it more like just a complete crazy head fuck of a trip,
Both of them. Well, one of my platoon sergeants, when I was in advanced training, I was talking to him, and he told me, he goes, you want to go? He goes, you want to go to Vietnam? He goes, you're going to experience shit no one else is going to experience. Mm-hmm. And he goes, if you live, and so it was, the way he put it was, I can't word it how he worded it, but for being a staff sergeant, and he was pretty eloquent in how he described war and being able, like I said, he goes, if you survive it, he goes, and so, yeah, I'm glad I did it. I don't have any regrets.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, obviously, I did 3 tours of Afghan, and I'd say out of everything, I mean, best time of my life, hands down. Absolutely loved every moment of it. It doesn't matter how crazy it got, how violent it got. Just for me, it's the most honest situation you'll ever find yourself. People are the raw versions of themselves. But what I'm trying to say is, in my day-to-day life, like, I've carried the lessons I've learned there and the quality what you become there into my normal life, and I'd say it benefits me the majority of the time, because the stress of daily life, I mean, you can jump on a surfboard. I'm not in that position where I am, but the stresses of daily life, it becomes far more manageable when you've dealt with stress of that magnitude before,
Yeah. But sometimes the daily shit that goes on here, it's like an attrition. It just starts wearing at you. It's like, a woodpecker just keeps going, duck, 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 duck.
Yeah. Then, it's like Japanese water torture, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like that. And it just, after a while, you just want to explode. And back in the 70s, I could do that. You could get away with shit, just, but now God, you look at somebody the wrong way here and, you know, you're off to jail. I've got.
Oh man, the world's gone fucking crazy, hasn't it?
Yeah,
And
it
it's the
has.
same everywhere. And it's the majority of it is in the first world countries, man. That's where all the control is. The poorer the countries, you know, it's generally there's more freedom. You know, I was just born in the wrong time, Pat. I'd have rather been born a couple of centuries early or, you know, later. I think this is the wrong time. But there's one part of your book that, again, it's been a while since I read it. I absolutely loved it. You were talking about how you were sneaking out with your buddies to go surfing outside the wire. I think that was the story.
No,
Am
I never got to surf in country, but I used to sneak out the water to go get a body count.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. What would you say is like the like when you think back to that time, what like memory jumps out the most, whether it's good or bad? What do you think about that when you look back? What sort of specific moment or series of moments were you like, fuck, you know, I can't believe he did that, or how great was that?
In the first part of it, we just kept getting into the shit. I mean, we were just losing a lot of guys and a lot of companies. And I mean, I cried myself to sleep for a long time because it was fucking gnarly, you know. And it just took a long transition, 6-7 months before I made the transition to where I wanted payback. And that's when, you know, sneaking out at night to go and get a body count. And it's like, my favorite thing was going out at night with a starlight scope with a 2-man team and going into their villages. And we had an M14 and a starlight scope and just wasting them, you know, and then running. You know,
as I said, different time back then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Crazy. Have you ever been back since Vietnam, like in modern day times, like back vacation or for a little wander around to see what it's like now? Or
Nah, I can't. I can't stand the food, can't stand the smell. I mean, I have a hard time. I'm Irish. I hate Irish food, fucking meat pies and that, and went to New Zealand and nearly starved to death because meat pies, you know, it's like England. Everybody eats meat pies. I can't
what's
stand
wrong with
it.
meat pies?
Yeah, I don't like corned beef and cabbage. The only thing I like is Mexican food. Because grew up in a Mexican neighborhood and I just love Mexican food. So anywhere I go, I starve. It's like, you know, yeah. So I had no desire to go back there. Just the smell of it. I went into a couple restaurants when I first came back. Well, not even after I came back. And I went into a couple of Oriental restaurants. And all of a sudden, the waitresses and everybody, all I was hearing was Vietnamese. It went from Chinese or whatever they're speaking to Vietnamese. And I was right back there. Half of me was in the restaurant and the other half was back in Vietnam going, oh. And I mean, part of me was seeing everything there and the other part was there. And it happened once when my wife was going to introduce me to her family. They picked a Chinese restaurant to go to. And I go, I can't go to a Chinese restaurant. I go, I have flashbacks. I go, and they're real. So we go into the restaurant. She goes, well, I'll help. And so I'm in there and I start going back into Vietnam. She's pinching the shit out of me. I'm pinching the shit out of me. And the parents kind of look at me like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. But I was right back in the jungles with my rifle, sitting around a fire. Came into a village and there was a little fire going, and we're going, okay, they were just here. And this is all going on while I'm sitting with their parents at dinner, meeting them for the first time.
How does that manifest physically though, when you do push, like when the trauma does hit you in a situation like that? Do you need a moment, or do you need to leave the situation and just, you know, do some breathing and get out of there, or do you just deal with it and bottle it up and move on?
Well, the problem is I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being back, and I enjoyed having my rifle in my hand. That's like, I got my rifle in my hand. I'm invulnerable, you know, that I'm untouchable. And so, yeah, it was like, I'm sitting there going, I really enjoy this. And the other part's going, hey, you got to come back to reality. You got people around you, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird how the brain works, because obviously some people they do have to deal with trauma and PTSD, and then other people you don't feel nothing. I mean, personally, from my perspective, I I enjoyed every moment of my trips. It doesn't matter how crazy they got. I remember, let's say I was in the southern green zone, south of our FOB, our forward operating base, in Sangin province in Helmand. And this was the most violent area of where we were in command of. And we'd always come under heavy fire when we moved south. And I remember one of the first main contacts, but we got ambushed from 3 directions, almost like semicircular in front of us. And we had every asset on station during that. I mean, I just remember the noise. Like, we obviously would get an RPG come in that would initiate a follow-up of automatic fire from them. And at this time, it's summer. There's a lot of gorse and wheat and everything and heavy vegetation. So you can only see muzzle flashes, regardless of the distance, if that. So they'd be coming in, and then very quickly, obviously, we're lining up a gun line. We're firing on them. We've got 105 shells coming over that we're calling in. We've got the Afghan National Army firing in from a flank. We've got an Apache gunship coming in, sat off firing Hellfires. We've got an A-10 Thunderbolt coming in, doing a gun run. The noise was tremendous. And I remember thinking, this is the most beautiful moment of my life at that point. I just remember thinking, this is just stuff that no one will ever experience. And all these thoughts are in a split second, because obviously you've got to react because these rounds are cracking over your head. You've got to work at the same time. But it was just like an instant realization where all these thoughts would come into one feeling. Oh,
Pretty gnarly.
yeah, best time of your life. Do you talk much about Vietnam with people now still?
If they ask, yeah.
Yeah.
I think my response is a little different what they expect, because most of the veterans I know that are Vietnam vets, it's, oh, the government fucked me over, and Vietnam fucked me over, and this and that. And me, it's like, no, I'm fine.
Good.
I'm fine. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
And I don't regret a day of it. I'm glad I
Absolutely.
went, and glad I did what I did. And so, yeah, I don't play the victim card on it at all.
No. How long were your trips back then? How long would you be out there, like on the campaign, on your tours?
That was, like I was telling you, we'd go out for 30 days at a time. They'd just fly us on out, and then off in the jungles we would go, and it was just mostly setting up ambush and counter ambush, we just hunted them down. That's what we did.
Over how long would this be before you went home?
Oh, well, no, I spent a year and a day there.
Right.
That was my whole tour. It was 1 year and a day, because I was drafted for 2 years. So
crazy. It's crazy, because I remember meeting Americans in Afghan, and they're still doing like a year. I don't know how it works. Obviously, they'll have R&Rs in between, but I think we do. It's about 7 months or slightly under as the tour, and it's something to do with tax. If you go longer, then the government, have to. I don't know how it works, but it's I remember hearing an American tell me that for the first time. Obviously, I don't know how they work it, but I just thought, wow, it's interesting how it's so drastically different. When you came back from Vietnam, I think a lot of Brits are under the impression of, I don't know if it's a media thing, that like there just wasn't a good welcome back for you guys from the American people. Like it was
it wasn't.
pretty horrific, wasn't it? All people screaming baby killers and all this shit.
Yeah, I came back in the middle of the night, so I missed all of it. Flew into Travis, into Oakland, California there, which is close to where I live. And so it's so late at night that the protesters weren't there. It's right next to San Francisco, but otherwise all the soldiers that were getting released in the daytime, they had protesters out there calling them all kinds of names. But as soon as we landed, I had to go through, whatever it is, processing to get out. And of course, I just came out of the jungle, so they weren't letting me out until I got a haircut and took a shower. I came right from the jungles onto the plane and came home. And they just looked at me and went, no. So I had to get a haircut, which fucking hated. And
yeah,
so
you won't be doing that now, would you? No one could force that on you.
Yeah, no. So my parents stopped at a restaurant. They've been waiting hours for me. So we stopped at a restaurant, went into the restaurant, and they refused to serve us. So,
because you were clearly a veteran.
Yeah, because I had my uniform on. So they went service, and that was about, I don't know, 2, 3 in the morning, and they just wouldn't do it. And then went to a store, stayed at my parents' house, got up in the morning, went to go get a Coke, and went into a liquor store to buy a Coke, and they thought I was a fraud, and so they called the cops. And so then I finally pulled out I let her call the cops, and I pulled out my military ID, and because she goes, oh, you're too young, you're impersonating. And she saw the money in my wallet, and she thought I'd robbed a bank. So I just let her call the cops, and then I pulled out my ID. I said, I'm a sergeant in the United States Army. And they kind of looked at it, and then I left. And then I went over to visit a friend of mine who I used to surf with. His father was the lifer I told you about in the Marines.
Yeah.
And so I went to his house that night, and he happened to be in Hawaii, but his brother and sister were having a party. So they asked me if I wanted to come on in. I went, yeah, okay, I'll come in. I was looking at all the records, all the psychedelic records from them. Next thing you know, somebody turns off the stereo set, and then I had to leave the party as people I knew called me baby killer. And they followed me all the way out to my car.
Just to make sure you were gone. It's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, now I'd say that it's probably done a complete 180 now. They couldn't do enough for veterans. Again, I mean, I've not been to America in a good few years. Went to Florida a couple of years ago, but the idea I got in modern day times nowadays, they're pretty pro veterans. I mean, you got both sides of the fence now. Everyone's political, aren't they? And everyone's got an opinion. But it's all politics now, isn't it? It's not a simple.
Yeah, the one thing that is going on, they've got a lot of these veterans organizations, but they're all post 9/11, and they do nothing for Korean, Vietnam, or a lot of the World War II guys. There's only a few left of them now, but yeah, they do nothing for them at all. It's like, oh no, we're just post 9/11. And it's like, oh, wait a second. I thought you're helping all veterans, because my wife went to go donate some money, and she looked into it, and they're going, no, we just do this. And then I looked a couple of times online. They've got these job fairs, but it's all post 9/11. No, free toolbox for all veterans. Oh, you're a Vietnam veteran? Sorry, you don't get it. And it's like, so we're still getting shit kicked at us. So
I don't know. Do you still feel the need, obviously with American gun culture, do you feel the need to be armed, where in your modern day, in your normal day life? Like, I don't know the laws in California and what the rules are there, but do you still go shooting or carry or open carry or whatever?
When Obama was president, he had the DOJ go through anybody that was the VA considered PTSD. He had him go through and take all the rifles, because I had the DOJ come to our house and take my rifle.
What did you have? What rifle?
An AK.
So what happened when he left office, and how did it change?
Well, the VA completely changed when Obama got out, because under Obama, the VA was a nightmare. There were people, it was all over the news. Guys were dying in the VA hospital. No one could get fired. And as soon as Trump came in, they fired like about 2,600 people right on the spot. Because I even made complaints about people, because they just had shitty attitudes going in to get help, and they're like, they wouldn't do anything for you. But that all changed when Trump came in, and he cleaned up the whole place. Yeah,
he just on the spot changed everything, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He cleaned up the VA. I needed a hand specialist, couldn't see a hand specialist. I needed a cortisone shot, couldn't get a cortisone shot. You wanted to get something done, sorry, they just gave you the runaround for that whole time he was in office. It was a nightmare.
Well, what are you doing with yourself now, day to day? You obviously run a surf shop or a couple of surf shops. You build
No, I had
surfboards.
those were back in the 90s. I had the surf shops, and 80s and 90s. I had two of them, and then they just went. And then the economy took a nosedive around 96 or so. So the surf shops took a nosedive with them.
Oh yeah.
I went to sell one to some people. Then they turned around, took all the inventory, filed bankruptcy on it. So I went to the bankruptcy court. They go, they just stole all my stuff. The judge goes, I don't care. And it's like, really? So yeah. And then I shaped boards for a long time after that. And then I went to the VA to go see what they had to offer. And then they retired me out.
But you're surfing every day still now, I reckon, huh?
Since COVID hit, surfing's not the same. It's insane.
You're in Santa Cruz, right?
Yes.
In California, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not the same. Mostly what I do now is I walk down to the beach and I take my board and I paddle up to the wharf. I'm right in front of the board. I'm right next to the boardwalk in Santa Cruz. We got the big boardwalk and the pier, so I just paddle back and forth there. But surfing changed. It's what I used to be able to paddle out at 5:30 in the morning in the springtime, and then maybe a friend of mine or two out. You're looking at 100 guys out, and it's just like and then I've had 4 friends of mine get cited because they yelled at guys, and so that was taken.
What is this cited? Is that like just banned from the beach?
Well, they didn't get banned, but they had to go to court because it was considered a threat. So they had to go to court for yelling at somebody in the water, saying, "I'm gonna," yeah, Jesus. It's off the Richter scale. It's not even the same,
When you say friends, are you talking about your own stories or actually friends?
Friends, no, friends, yeah. Okay. I'm more discreet.
Yeah. Good thing you had that AK taken off you, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
So you're in Santa Cruz now. Did you say you're married now?
Yes.
Yeah. How long have you been married?
27 years.
Holy crap. That's a long time. Huh? How many kids have you got? Have you got kids?
None. No.
Never wanted them, or?
Not really. I was more into surfing, and then we drank Agent Orange and napalm right out of the Mekong River. And so it's like, okay, drinking Agent Orange and all that shit out of the water, I figured there's going to be repercussions. And all the friends that I had in my combat unit, all of them have passed from Agent Orange. The most recently was Mike Wheeler, who died about 3 months ago. He was the first friend I had in Vietnam.
How is your health in general? Like, have you seen any changes since? Well, I know Vietnam's a long time ago, but did it affect you in that regard?
I don't think so.
No.
I'm still.
You're looking pretty good spirits anyway, and if you've been surfing most days since then, I mean,
yeah,
you're beating it. I think you got in.
I think I beat it. Well, everybody else was inland and not surfing, and I was in the water surfing all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, when I came back from Vietnam, I lived in surf houses for a long time. I mean, a whole bunch of guys piled in the houses, just barely paying rent, and all we did was surf all day, and then we surf at night. And so I think all those years of doing that was therapeutic and helped,
It was. I used to love surfing at night. We used to take some Siloams glow sticks, like we had in the military, and we'd because obviously when there's no moon, it's just pitch black and with the rocks and stuff. So there used to be always 2 of us, but sometimes 3 or 4, and we'd go down to the beach before turning up to start a day's work on the base. This was down in Devon in southwest England at the time, and we used to just get a couple of glow sticks, stick them into our wetsuits, and then you got no concept of speed in the dark, so you feel like you're going 100 miles an hour. It's just an amazing feeling. I mean, I was never good. I wasn't your standard of surfing. I mean, I could get up and do a few little turns, but it was just a pleasure to stand on a wave and ride it, But I don't think we ever would get the get as busy as your beaches. That we'd pretty much had the whole place to ourselves, especially in England. It's
Nice.
we do have some lovely beaches in the south, especially for surfing. It is very, very, it is good. And I like my winter swimming as well, because I do a lot of cold weather stuff. I love ice baths and stuff like that. So getting out there in the winter is definitely my sort of thing. Was your wife ever into surfing? Did you surf together?
Yeah.
Oh, is that how you met?
Yeah, that's how we met.
Ah, you charmed her on the wave, did you?
Yeah. I used
Chasing
to
her down the
manufacture
barrel.
sandals for all the surf shops.
Right.
And all the rubber thongs and leather thongs. So I used to make those. And when I had the surf shop, it was supposed to be a sandal shop, but things led from one thing to another, and it turned into a surf shop along with manufacturing sandals. But she tells people, "Oh, how did you meet your husband?" She goes, "I met him in the water." And she goes, "I asked him how he got started making sandals." And my response was, "Well, I had jungle rot really bad. We got dropped off, at hot LZ, and as I was we had to get out of the rice paddies, otherwise it was going to, take us all out. So I start running out of the rice paddies. The guy came up with an RPG launcher, shot it at point blank at me, and as I fell, I just happened to be tripping. I shot him, and he went down. I got out of the rice paddies, followed the blood trail, and a gunship finished him off. And when I looked at him, he had sandals. Anyway, so in the middle of this battle, we're in a village. I'm taking off my boots and pulling off his sandals, and I'm fitting him. I remember seeing 3 Viet Cong run by and go, "Oh shit!" And then back, and then one of our guys comes up and hits me and starts trying to drag me away. And I go, "What the? Leave me the fuck alone." He goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "He's got sandals. I'm taking his sandals." And so I sat there, pulled my boot off in the middle of this battle, trying to see if the sandals fit me. Then I put my boot back on, and so that's how.
Pat, they must have been some pretty great sandals to do that.
So yeah, so my wife tells people like, "Well, what was your first? How did you meet your husband?" She goes, "Well, I asked him how he started making sandals, and that was my conversation to her." People just kind of going, "Ooh, you didn't run, huh?"
Hilarious. What was I going to say? I wanted to touch on things like how it affected you mentally, but it sounds like pretty much every aspect of Vietnam was a good series of moments for you. Do you feel like it had any negative impact on you at all, or all good?
Well, like I said, I went into shell shock on my 3rd day, so I was out for about a week, and came back to, and then I just had blackouts all the time. I didn't even know I was functioning, but somehow I was functioning, and I'd come to going, "Oh shit, how did I get here? We're out in patrol," and no one had any clue. I didn't even have any clue, but somehow that's probably affected me somewhere along the line. And then, like I said, that when I first over there, we just ran into shit after shit, and there was a lot of times I cried myself to sleep at night. It was just so scary. And then came out of it, and then there's just that long transition where it's like, okay, in order for me to get out of this, I've got to redeem myself. If I hadn't been able to redeem myself, then I would have probably just been sitting in some VA hospital, just getting medicated out.
When you left the military, did the American government help you in any way, like to push getting into civilian life? Or
nope, they didn't do a thing. It's like, goodbye, you're out of here.
It's quite surprising. I mean, not surprising, but when you said that when you came out of Vietnam and you got back to the US, that you just straight back into society, because I don't know how they do it now. I assume it's similar to how we do it now, where legally they send us on the way back from Afghan, for example, they send us to Cyprus for 1 day they call it decompression, so that they can't be liable if you do anything when you get home. But obviously that 24-hour period takes all the stress out of the experience for the 7 months of hardened battle on the war on the field. It's really quite comical when you think of it like that, and the same with the UK. I mean, there just isn't enough enough support. I mean, if you really go through stuff, we'll like from the government. I mean, the government pretty much initially might help you out, and now we do get like resettlement where they actually support you going into your next job in terms of covering some of the costs. So it's getting better, but generally down the road, things about mental health, you just sort of get forgotten about, and it's your fellow veteran mates and maybe military charities ran by veterans usually that are helping each other out, which to be honest we do a very good job of here, because we really look out for each other, especially Marines from my background, because obviously that's what I know. But yeah, it's definitely room for improvement hit on in the UK side, you know.
But it seemed, from when you were in, when you were still in the service and I was communicating with you guys had a really tight bunch, because I got letters from the different guys, and
Yeah.
And it just seemed like, wow, this is a really tight bunch. I didn't have that, but yeah, it just seemed really nice that you guys had that camaraderie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was great. I mean, we were so well trained because in the Royal Marines, we're what you call Green Berets. That's what we are, and we work so hard, like so thoroughly together, and everyone's there because they want to be there. They've not been pulled in, and when you're in a position like that and you work together and train together for so long, by the time you get on operations, you know where each other is. The communication's obviously key, but it's almost like sometimes you don't even need to communicate, because you know that guy's got your back. You trust him completely to know where you are at all times. Yeah, it's pretty great. So yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's not like that in every military unit, but obviously the Marines itself is an elite organization, from you. So I'm going to want a copy of this second book that you're talking about. I want to hear how crazy this stuff is, Pat. Whether or not it goes into publish, it sounds too good to miss.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's pretty out there.
What have you called it?
Walking Away.
Walking Away. Right, when that does go on to the publishers, man, I've got to, even if you just publish 5 copies, I'm reserving one.
Okay.
Listen, Pat, that's about 45 minutes. So, man, I appreciate you doing this and sharing your thoughts. It's going to be interesting. Well, it's interesting for me, but for everyone watching, I mean, we just don't hear much about, the American side, and especially, I mean, the Vietnam experiences are getting smaller and smaller as we move forward in time. So for you sharing everything, man, it's just been fantastic insight. Loved it, man. I'll have to when I do visit California, hopefully in the near future, I'm gonna have to come and get a surfboard off you and hit the waves.
Yeah,
man.
With this COVID ever ends, I want to come to England.
The South's perfect. Yeah. I mean, if I don't get cited, that is, for saying the wrong thing on the beach. Because we naturally do swear quite a lot, so it's just part of the vocabulary at this point. Listen, Pat, thanks very much, mate. I appreciate you coming on and talking. It's been real, seriously. I appreciate your input.
It's great to talk to you. Are you back?